Friday. My name is Katie, and this is Katie's Critter Corner. Today with me, I have Yoshi. He is my 2-year-old Syrian hamster. And today we are talking about these guys because I think their care is really underrated. They are a pet that you can just decide on a whim that you're gonna go to the pet store and get. You can find them pretty much everywhere you go when it comes to a pet store. They're not that expensive themselves, but their care is quite costly. I know that people think, oh, you know, I'll get a hamster, I'll just get some food, I'll get one of those little wire cages, a wheel, a water bottle, and call it a day. But that could not be any farther from the truth. These guys are so incredible despite their small size. There are around 24 different species of hamsters. Now, the ones that you're gonna see most commonly in pet stores and in the pet trade themselves are what you have here, which is your Syrian and or golden hamster, and then also the dwarf hamster, any of those species. Typically, those are the most common ones that you're gonna find. And myself, I've always had Syrians and I just absolutely adore them. They have great personalities. Of course, just like dogs, every hamster is a little bit different. I have had ones that don't really care to be handled, and then like Yoshi and my previous Syrian Carlton, they love to come out and hang out with you, but on their own terms. You never want to push these guys either because they are rodents and they can bite. They can be a little unpredictable. So these guys typically, they are nocturnal, which means they like to come out at night. So that's why especially if you put them in a kid's room, a kid will say, that hamster kept me up all night. That's why it's super, super important that you give them a nice enclosure and an area where they're not gonna disturb your sleep. These guys do need a bigger enclosure than what you would expect. So you can't see the whole thing over here, but this is where my baby snake lives. It's a 40-gallon breeder. I also have Yoshi in one of those. The only difference is his is not front opening. So in his enclosure, they really like to dig and they like to burrow. They like to forage for food. These guys like to dig underneath their bedding, and that's where they're gonna make their home, where they're gonna take all their food back to. So you really need to give them around 6 to 8, maybe even 10 inches of bedding to burrow in so they can create that space where they call home. Another really important thing that these guys need is an appropriate sized wheel. I cannot stress this enough. Wire wheels are not good for them because they can run up to 8 miles per night. That is crazy to think that these little tiny hamsters with their little tiny legs can run that much, but they can do up to 8 miles per night on their wheel. So it's super important that you're not giving them a wire wheel where it's really gonna hurt their feet over time from their feet pressing into the wire. And also you don't wanna give a hamster of this size a wheel that is too small, because as they run, their backs flex and it's really difficult on their backs if they have something that's too small because they're crunched up in the wheel and they really can't move properly. But these guys will do it anyway, even if it's uncomfortable, but over time that creates a lot of issues for them. They only live between 2 to 4 years, but that doesn't mean, just like how I always say with reptiles, that their care is less than a dog or a cat. They absolutely deserve the best. So giving them an appropriate sized enclosure, locating it somewhere in your house where it's not going to disturb you while you sleep, a proper sized wheel, making sure they have enough food to forage for, because although they do like to have a dish, and of course Yoshi probably has like 4 or 5 dishes in his enclosure, because I will fill them up and I will hide them, or I will oftentimes take the food and I will just sprinkle it throughout the enclosure and I'll let him find it. So I'll switch it up for him because I never want it to be the same. I don't want him to get too bored or anything like that. Inside of his enclosure, he also has a water bottle. Some people do the dish. You can do both. It doesn't matter. Just making sure that they have water available to them at all times is super important. Another big one is temperature and climate. So these guys don't like it if it's too hot or it's too cold. So they will all go into a hibernation if they're in an area where it's a little bit too cold. And if it's too hot, they can overheat and have stroke. So we want to make sure that they're in a comfortable setting that's not going to be too hot and or too cold for them. So keep that in mind if you have them in front of a window or something like that. When you have extreme weather conditions, it can also affect these guys as well. Of course, we are always here to answer any questions in regards to our pocket pets and friends. We also see them here at Pleasant Valley. We have a bunch of great doctors, Dr. Wells, Dr. Hart, Dr. Riker. They all love seeing these guys. So of course, if you have any questions, concerns, you feel your hamster may be ill, because like most pocket pets and reptiles, these guys tend to get sick quickly and they go down quickly. And because their lifespans are so short, it is important to make sure you're staying up on their care. And if anything seems off at any point, do not hesitate to reach out to your veterinarian, because we need to see them ASAP and hopefully get them help that they deserve. Okay, guys? Of course, we will see you next Friday. I thank you so much for joining me. See you later.